Yeah, thank you. My name's Craig Pennington, as Mick has said, and I'm the Chief Executive of a community music venue in Birkenhead, very close to Liverpool in the UK. And I'll tell you a little bit about our place and why that place is important in a moment when we get into it. But I wanted to start by sharing the fundamental underpinning idea, what it is that motivated me and my colleagues and co-conspirators to actually start this community music venue, to start this thing in Birkenhead. And it's that idea that we genuinely believe that music can change the world. And I'm sure I'm sharing a room full of people today who probably hold that idea in quite strong affection, because I'm probably surrounded by people today who have lived a life where music has had a really profound impact, both on who you are as an individual, but potentially also the opportunities that you've enjoyed personally, creatively, professionally. And in many ways, I'm kind of preaching to the converted to a certain extent when I come out with a statement like, music can change the world, with an audience like this. But how that becomes really, really useful, I think, is when you start to unpick it a little bit. Because that can sound quite broad, bold, wide in scope, hard to really tangibly think, well, that's great, Craig, what a lovely idea. But what does that actually mean? What does that mean for people? And I think the key idea is that we need to think about music as a transformative opportunity. Think about music in a way that it can fundamentally change things. And for us at Future Yard, and for me personally, that has two aspects to it. One is about how can it change people's lives? How can it fundamentally provide new opportunities, new perspectives, new pathways, fundamentally reshape individual people's lives? And secondly, how does it change a place? If you think about it, music has a very, very unique capacity to change what a place means in the world. So if I say to you now, New Orleans, New York, Dusseldorf, sorry if that's a... these are places where music has a very, very strong connection. And over time, has fundamentally shaped what that place means in the world. I mean, Liverpool. I'm sure when I say the word Liverpool, people probably think of two things. Football, and them four guys that played music and did pretty well at it. And that's great. So music has this power. Music has this power to shape what a place means and fundamentally, positively impact the lives of local people, and all people, for that matter. So hold those two ideas throughout this conversation. Opportunities for people, shaping people's lives, and fundamentally changing what a place means in the world. So, Birkenhead, where's Birkenhead? I'm pretty sure that most people in here, without the opportunity to have a quick look online, probably didn't know where Birkenhead was. And that's cool, that's fine. So we're very, very close to Liverpool, part of a region called the Liverpool City region. So that's essentially the federal area that we're a part of, the larger political group. Birkenhead is very much its own town with its own social history, but is very much part of the Liverpool City region. And just to prove the point of how close it is, people will probably recognize that skyline with the liverbirds and that iconic Liverpool skyline. Our venue, and yes, I've timed it, on the underground train takes 247 seconds from Liverpool city centre. So though we are very much our own town and our place, we are very close to Liverpool city centre. But Birkenhead has a very, very unique and challenging social context. So historically, Birkenhead was a shipbuilding town. There's a big shipbuilding company called Camel Laird's that built a lot of the Cunard liners, has a long and proud maritime shipbuilding history. But like many northern British cities and many European cities that were built on heavy industry, the last 30, 40 years has seen a real steep decline in those traditional industries, and it's seen really quite alarming rises of social deprivation. In the UK, we use this term IMD, so that's the index or indices of multiple deprivation. All that is the way that our government measures poverty. So all of the indicators for poverty, whether that's childhood malnutrition, if it's birth rates and death rates, if it's life expectancy, if it's any indicator, alcoholism, obesity, all the indicators of social deprivation, they're brought together and measured through indices of multiple deprivation. Birkenhead is in the most deprived 0.3% of the whole country. So it's a really, really challenging place in terms of the poverty and the challenges that local people face. And in that situation, this is a point that I think is important to make, that Future Yard, my organization that I founded with a group of friends, is a social enterprise, which I'm not entirely sure what the comparable structure is within Germany, but it basically means we're a non-profit organization. So any surplus, any money that the organization makes, we reinvest in our programs, in our social outreach programs, in our community programs, and our learning, which we'll talk about in a minute. So we're there, from the way that we're constituted, to drive positive social change in the part of the world that we're in. We started back in 2019, so before we opened our building, 2019, before the pandemic, we ran a festival called Future Yard Festival, which was a big test and learning pilot program, which we presented over a long weekend in the middle of our town. We took over the town hall, we ran a range of shows across numerous different venues, and we piloted a lot of our community outreach work, artist development work, and training programs, which was a great success. This photograph is in Birkenhead Town Hall with an artist called Anne. And that really gave us the confidence then from that point to move forward to build the venue and have that permanent bricks and mortar. And then COVID-19 happened. So we found ourselves in a situation where we had signed for a building. We'd signed a lease on a building in January 2020, just a matter of months before the UK then went into lockdown. And we were faced with a decision to either continue with this project or to walk away. And we decided to continue. And it was really interesting that during that period, this idea of why on earth would you possibly open a community music venue in the middle of a global pandemic really kind of captured the public imagination. So this is a picture of me on national BBC TV, where they asked that question, what idiot opens a community music venue in the middle of a global pandemic? But yeah, we used the opportunity to get busy, to do the things that maybe it would have taken 2, 3, 4, 5 years to be able to do. Here's a picture of me in very much a work in progress, surrounded by some very oversized ventilation, which at the time with COVID, I'm sure people will remember the calculations we were doing on air changes to see how many people you could have in a space. So yeah, that's us very much in the midst of that. And what that left us with, Coming out the other side of the pandemic is the facility that we have now. So we have a 280 capacity live room, so very small compared to this beautiful space, but 280 capacity live room, which is in the bottom left-hand corner. We've then got quite a large outdoor garden space, which we use for summer festivals, standalone concerts, which you can see in the top left. We've currently got 5 rehearsal studio spaces in our basement, which is in the top right-hand corner there, which is the room that Mika conducted an interview in, which you mentioned in my very kind introduction. And then we have a bar, cafe, gallery space as well, which is open 7 days a week to the public. And this is a photograph from one of the fair shows that we did after the pandemic, when all the restrictions were lifted, and 2 years in, we actually had this space that we could use to run all of our activity. What I'd like to share with you now, if you wouldn't mind, is a short film. This film was made by an organisation in the UK called Power to Change, and they specifically work with community organisations, not just in music, not just in the arts, but community-led organisations that are trying to bring about social change within their communities. They have been really interested and supportive of our work, and they came and spent a few days with us a couple of years ago now, just after we opened, and made a film which just essentially paints the picture of what Future Yard is and what we do. But what I like is the fact that it's not made by us. It's made by a third-party organisation that came and spent some time with us. So it's only 5 minutes, but yeah, hopefully this will be useful and enjoyable.
It's the story of kind of every post-industrial town up and down the country. Birkenhead's not really anything different. Birkenhead's got like a beautiful side to it with like Hamilton Square and a lot of the grandeur that comes with its quite storied past, some of which is kind of like lost in the sands of time. In most people's minds, people who live here and people who live in the surrounding areas, when they think of Birkenhead, they think of something a little bit more dilapidated and not as fancy as that, because Birkenhead's reputation in the past 20, 30, 40 years isn't Hamilton Square or the Grand Birkenhead Park. It's kind of a story of decline. It's a story of there not being a huge amount of stuff around.
I suppose culturally, like, there's so much more going on the other side of the water. The river is a physical barrier, and it's also a psychological barrier. Not that it's separate, it's just another part of the ecosystem. It's just a ferry ride across or 2 minutes in the tunnel. Now we've got a little bit of stuff going on in Birkenhead as well. Revolution over scale, workhouse up the hill, parallels, going no breath, getting busy, getting fed, Birkenhead.
You're not going to change Birkenhead by gentrifying it, kind of like raising the land value and getting people to come and move into hip new flats. That's not what it is. You're going to change Birkenhead by changing the way people feel about it, and you start with making people feel proud about where they're from and what's on their doorstep.
Birkenhead and the Wirral's got its own story to tell. You know, some of the most amazing music and some of Liverpool's most successful musical kind of outputs have come from this part of the world. But for years and years and years, there wasn't venues here. There was nothing in the way of music infrastructure, and all of those kind of potential positive impacts for the local place were being lost really because there wasn't a platform that was there to celebrate them. Future Yard was established to kind of reimagine the role of a live music venue as a place that can bring about real, meaningful social change. We're a live music venue, so we welcome some of the most exciting new music from all around the world onto our stage. But we also, think about the role that a music venue can play in terms of providing opportunities for local young people.
Training and like development stuff that we do at Future Yard is the most rewarding thing in the world. There was no one around to show me how to do things when I first started working in music. Everyone kept their cards very close to their chest. And I think what we want to do is just make sure that, you know, all of the information and all of the knowledge that we've amassed over the many years of working in music, that we can pass it on to other people.
My name's Felipe. My job title is production engineer and I'm 17. 2019, I think it was just before my 15th birthday and I volunteered on the Future Yard Festival. Late 2020, I started the soundcheck program. I got to see a lot more of different sides of the industry that I hadn't seen before, as well as just solidifying what I knew at more of a standardized industry standard kind of level. I think it's the best job out there. So,
music venues have needed a kind of a paradigm shift for probably 20 years. That traditional model of a venue that opens at 7 o'clock and closes at 11 and shut all day is dead. And, you know, the forces of gentrification and the way that the world has changed and kind of the property values within city centres and all of those issues that are seeing us losing tens of music venues, you know, a month in this country. So I think we've got to find new ways of doing things. Music venues, grassroots music venues are like the R&D department of the UK music industry. They have been since day dot, but they've never framed themselves as that.
One of the kind of like the legacy things that we want to do is, you know, make people think a little bit more positively about where they're from. Music is an amazing way of doing that. I think it's a great way to bring people together at a great level, that people maybe from different backgrounds who haven't spoken to each other or never met, never connected. And it's a great conversation starter. So we hope through the kind of like the variety of things that we're doing and the community programme.
My name's Matt. I'm the venue booker here, so I'm in charge of booking all the bands in. Booking side of everything isn't actually that sexy. Most of the time it's just spent on spreadsheets and trying to sell tickets to people, which isn't the fun part, but like being able to book bands that you love. As a pure vanity thing, it's booking bands in the place you're from and like bringing people to Birkenhead, you know, and like hearing like an American hip-hop artist saying, "Hello, Birkenhead, Vegas." Like, it doesn't really get much better than that, really. Birkenhead's where I'm from and it's where I've loved, and the gigs that I've done, the first sort of gigs that I ever did were on this side of the water. Some more successfully than others, usually just like beg, stealing and borrowing, like backline, and now it's just great to have a room where I can just go in and book really good people that might never have come to Birkenhead. I mean, like tonight, like Bodega played Birkenhead twice and not played Liverpool, which feels like somewhat of an achievement, if not completely tribalist.
Music venues have always been community interest companies because they're there to support local communities. Being a CIC means that we have to do that and recognise that in a statutory sense, but also just in terms of being the kind of organisation which is relevant in 2022, our environmental impact and our sustainability work, and making sure that we're hopefully leaving the environment in a more positive state as a result of us being here than, you know, it would have been if we hadn't been here in the first place.
Maybe in a few years, the way people see Birkenhead will be different to the way they've seen it in the previous 5 to 10 years.
To try and build something like this, you just need a really passionate group of people who are, you know, from the place that you're looking to build and are wanting to build something amazing. Nothing's impossible, really. You know, I think that music venues kind of have a purpose and have always had a purpose in the world and community, but I think that they can provide more and more.
We want to make sure that we've got, you know, a really, really interesting community of bands and artists that are accessing services here, from having a space to kind of base their project, to being given mentorship and like a program of workshops and masterclasses, so that we can get them from having music as a passion to professionalising and thinking about it as a career as well.
The impact will be a kind of lot broader than basic numbers and footfall through shows here at the venue. It's going to be kind of have a wider, I suppose, societal impact, and maybe in a few years the way people see Birkenhead will be different to the way they've seen it in the previous 5 to 10 years.
We're essentially clustering R&D, talent development, pipeline for skills, putting all that in one building, creating all the connections that creates, put that in a place that really, really needs it, where it can bring about profound change. And that is when special things should, over time, with the right people, the right ideas, and a big dollop of good luck, you've got half a chance.
Okay. So, oh, thank you. So hopefully that was useful, just to try and kind of bring some still images to life and put what we do into a bit of context. I'd like to spend a little bit of time just kind of unpicking our model, so being a bit more specific about the work that we do and how that all comes together to hopefully bring about the kind of impacts that we've set out. What's important to say is that there are essentially 3 pillars to what we do. We're a live music venue, and then sitting alongside that central pillar as a live music venue, we've got our skills and training work, and then our artist development activity. So I'm just going to spend a little bit of time talking about each of those 3 pillars and how they come together. So as a live music venue, we, as I mentioned before, we've got 2 spaces currently, a 280 cap live room and a 600 capacity garden, and we program a really broad and wide range of live music within those spaces. So, I mean, we're a contemporary music venue, so we present a lot of alternative guitar music, electronic music, jazz, hip-hop, contemporary classical, a range of things in between. We just have a caveat, I suppose, that it's new, it's interesting, and it's brilliant. As long as it falls within that, we'll book anything. It's just a bit of a flavour of some of the artists that we've had on recently. We've just had a bank holiday weekend actually in the UK. We ran a 3-day festival which was headlined on Sunday by Pussy Riot, doing their new Riot Days show, which was super interesting, a lot of punk and electronic music that culminated with that show. So a real broad mix of different types of genres. And the thing that is important to stress as well is that as well as it being broad from a genre perspective, around 60% of the shows that we present are touring national and international artists, around 40% are local, but we also really endeavour to make sure that the programme is truly intergenerational. So every Sunday morning we do our Mosh Tots shows. So that's a live show where kids can come with a live performance and have that first live music experience together with their families. Because that's one thing that when we did early community consultation, that a lot of young parents were telling us that when they had children, they stopped engaging in music. So we were really keen early on to have a really high quality family live music experience, which we do, as I say, with our Mosh Tots gigs every Sunday morning. So that's an overview of the core live program. That's the heart and soul of everything that we do. We're a music venue. We put on great, high-quality music. Important to say as well that given we're in Birkenhead, we're not in Liverpool city centre, the quality of what we have to achieve has got to be even better than everything else that's happening in Liverpool city centre, because we've got to try so hard to encourage audiences to come to see us rather than just go into the city centre. So, live music venue, the second pillar, supporting pillar, is all around skills and training. And when I'm talking about skills and training, I'm talking about off-stage roles. So I'm not talking about musicians per se, though, as everybody will know, a lot of the time, successful sound engineers, lighting designers are also musicians, but our skills and training offer is really focused on those off-stage roles. And the reason that we do this comes back to what I was talking about before, when I was talking about the particular social deprivation and the poverty which exists in Birkenhead, and a real shortage of aspirational quality jobs. So what we do is we use our live venue essentially as a training opportunity, and we open up and think about all of the professional employed roles that we employ people every time we open our doors to deliver a show. Live sound engineer, lighting designer, event management, box office, and we create training pathways around each of those roles. And what that has allowed us to do is have around 300 local young people who've accessed our sound check. We call the program sound check. So 300 local people have accessed that program since we started it in 2021. That's also, as well as then sending those young people out into the industry to go on and have careers and, you know, create a better future for themselves and their families, it's also really fundamentally impacted the nature of our organization. So as well as creating a culture of learning, so there's an expectation whenever we put on a show that all of those professional functions are learning opportunities. So that expectation about knowledge transfer and sharing is really baked into the culture of the organization. But around 25%, it's actually a little bit higher than that now, but around 25% of our current workforce across the whole organization has actually come through that program, and 100% of our production team. So all of our sound engineers, our lighting designers, our event managers, and our box office staff have all come through that program. So it means that the average age of our sound engineers is about 24. And it really creates a dynamic, fervent, exciting space for people to work, but I also believe that that translates then to the audiences. Brings some challenges, having a workforce of that age and that, motivated and sometimes idealistic, but that's fantastic. I'd much prefer to have it that way around. But I do think that our soundcheck program and our approach to skills and learning is quite unique in the UK. We've done some work at government level as a case study, looking at how our approach can be used in other creative industries and other sectors. Really, it's a simple idea. Take what you do, reimagine it as a training opportunity, and provide that free to access to the young people that need it the most. And yeah, here's just some photos of the program in action. And then the third pillar, so we've got live venue, skills and training, and then the third pillar is all around artist development. So this is very much the creative, artistic, musician-led side of our work. So we run a program called Propeller, which is essentially an incubator program. So we take an incubator-style approach, and we apply it to emerging new artists. So they have access to space to base their project, to use our studios to shape their work. They have access to a really experienced, high-quality mentor, a range of workshops, masterclasses, really to make sure that we can work with those artists to underpin their career by developing and helping to grow them both creatively in terms of their creative practice, but also developing their audience as well. So we can work with them to put in place some robust career foundations, and we're currently supporting around 150 local artists through that program. What that, and here's Kath in action with one of our artists and some of the shows that are taking place on the stage. What all of that does when you bring it together is creates a really interesting ecosystem, and this next slide will hopefully demonstrate that. So if you think about all of the different audiences that coalesce around that live music venue, the artists, the people coming to the shows, the touring engineers, the touring crew, stage managers, front of house, catering, marketing, those regional audiences, the national audiences, all of that coalesces around the live music activity. You think about the skills and training offer, the young people that are accessing that training offer, the professionals that are helping to support them through those training programs. And you think about the artists engaged in our artist developments. They're often really high quality, exciting, emerging new artists that are driven to develop within their career, accessing support from really high quality national and international mentors. If you put all of those communities and individuals that coalesce around all that activity, and you put all that in one building, you cluster all that in one place, you take that and you put that in a part of the world where that stuff doesn't normally happen. And what that becomes is a really, really transformational new institution within a town. And that's exactly what we've done. So over this 5-year period, not only have we focused inwardly on our activity and the model that I've just described, we've worked very, very hard with our local authority, our local council, the Liverpool City region, national government through our local MP, to really, really shape what that looks like and the impact that that has on a place, and look at how we communicate that outwards as well as inwards. The thing that's important to say as well is that if you take that whole approach and that whole model, it's really, really important to us that the people accessing our work, whether that's the live program, who are taking part in our training programs, or who are accessing our artist activity, are coming from the parts of the neighborhood that would not normally have access to that kind of activity. So we've been very, very deliberate from the start about identifying what that neighborhood is. If you indulge me for just one moment to talk about the way that postcodes work in the UK, not the most exciting subject, but go with me on it. Because of the way that we can access data around social deprivation, coming back to what I was talking about earlier around indices of multiple deprivation, we know that if you draw a line around our venue, around the 3 districts, very, very small, they're called electoral wards, but the 3 local districts, we can access all of the data that the government collects on social deprivation at that level. If we can target our activity through our neighbourhood work specifically within those communities, and we can track the impact of that work over time, what we can start to do is really, really understand the impact that's having on the lives of people from those communities who are accessing our work. When I spoke earlier around music as a transformational opportunity happening on the individual level, the opportunities for individual people, and also happening at the town level around what the place means in the world, we can be very, very deliberate then about understanding what that impact looks like over a prolonged period of time. So, that all sounds great, but how on earth do you pay for it? Because that's the question that I get asked probably more than any else. And I appreciate that models around funding and trading will be different in the UK to how they are in Germany. But what I'd like to do is just share with you how we do it, and then I'm sure you can creatively think about how that potentially works within your context. Cool. So as we get into that, first thing is I just wanted to very, very briefly mention this idea of a triple bottom line. People familiar with what a triple bottom line is? Anyone heard that expression before? No. Cool. It's really simple. So normally, a normal business operates on a bottom line, which is basically their profit, financial. So have they brought more cash in than they've spent? That's their bottom line. A triple bottom line, all it says is that we actually measure our bottom line, but it's not just financial. There's the financial bottom line, which we know what that is, but then there's also the environmental bottom line. What impact are we having on the environment? And then the social bottom line. Are we having a positive social impact? Are we generating social value? And are we able, over a period of time, to measure that? So as an organization, when we produce our annual report, yeah, we make sure that we've made enough money to pay for everything. There's the financial report. But we also measure, quantify, and report back on our environmental impact and our social impact. So we operate on that idea of a triple bottom line. And that is a very simple, not particularly exciting way of demonstrating that point. So those three areas, financial, social, and environmental. If we just take the financial bit, because I started off with posing the question, how on earth do you pay for it? So let's talk about the financial bit. So we have 3 revenue streams within our organization, and pretty simple, I would imagine. So trading, so we do the kind of things that music venues have always done. We sell tickets, we sell beer, we put coats in cloakrooms, we sell slices of pizza, we sell our own merchandise. The trading function that traditional music venues do. We access some grant funding, so some grant funding from Arts Council England, which is the UK's arts development agency, and some small pots of project-based funding for a particular piece of work at any one time. And there are 1 or 2 trusts and foundations in the UK, which are grant-giving organisations that we do enjoy some support from. The third one is around commissioning, and if I just explain what I mean by that, that isn't a grant, so that's a great project. We believe that will be a good thing to do. Here's the money to do it. Commissioning is where we're being paid to deliver a service, and we're being paid on outputs. So when we deliver our training programs, our soundcheck training program that I mentioned before, if we deliver that program and no one comes through it and no one has a successful experience, we don't get a penny. So we get paid essentially in the same way that colleges would get paid in the UK, that you are paid if the young people have that positive experience and have a positive outcome. So it's not grant, it's commissioning. We're providing a service. Our business model allows us to draw down money from all 3 of those areas, which, when you look at the traditional model for a community music venue in the UK, it doesn't operate like that. Most of it is trading with a small piece of grant funding. Commissioning isn't something that traditionally happens within community music venues. So it's thinking about what we do and maybe what you do, and thinking about what are the different types of funding and commissioning relationships that might be available to you with different parts of the local economy or the skills and learning or the education infrastructure. Just a quick question. What percentage of our revenues do people think are made up by each of those segments? How much of our revenue do people think is made up by trading, for instance? Anyone? Just shout a number out. Yeah, go ahead. So 80 trading, 20 grant, 0 commissioning. Okay, interesting. Anyone else got an advance on that? 35, split all the way around. Okay, so grant's the highest, commissioning, and then trading is the smallest. Okay? 30, 40, and 30. Okay? Interesting. Mick is not allowed to answer. She knows the answer. Maybe. Okay, that's the answer. So yeah, currently 50% of our revenue comes from trading. Tickets, beer, pizza, coats and cloakrooms, that kind of stuff. 15% within commissioning, though that, I imagine, over the next 2 years is going to increase. And grant funding around 35%. We're aiming to have grant funding, hopefully within the next 3 to 5 years, at around 15% from a sustainability point of view. That's where we'd like to be. So, yeah. Just kind of unpacking that a little bit. So when we're talking about grant funding and commissioning, together that's 50% of our revenue. So what kind of organisations does that come from? Where does that money come from? And here's just a flavour of them. So I mentioned before Arts Council England, which is England's arts development agency. Wirral is our local council, so essentially our town council. Liverpool City region, which you'll see on the right-hand side, is our federal area, our kind of our city region. And then there's a mix there of different scales of organisations that would fund us either for a particular project or around what we call core funding as well, so a contribution towards. One of the panellists on the panel before was talking about potentially moving from a situation where projects are funded on a project-by-project basis, and you find yourself in a situation where you're having to apply every time you want to do a new project. Some of our work is funded like that, but then foundations like Paul Hamlin and Esme Fairbairn do make a small, relatively small contribution towards our core costs. But I think the important takeaway from that is that mix of grant funding and commissioning actually comes from quite a lot of sources. There's quite a lot of different types of organisations, different types of relationships, and organisations that probably value what we do in different ways. So for instance, just by way of an example, Merseyside Violence Reduction Partnership is actually an initiative by the local police, and that is all around providing diversionary activity for young people so they don't get involved in crime. They're not really too bothered whether we're a music venue. What they're interested in is anything that works as a diversionary activity to make sure that young people don't get involved in crime. So again, it's about thinking, and I'm sure everybody does this in your own ways, in your own context, but thinking about the value in your work and whose problems are you actually solving without even realizing it a lot of the time. That's one of the things that I often challenge my team to think about is whose problems are you solving? What are you actually achieving in the world, but using music as the way through which you do that. I've only got a couple more minutes, so I just want to give you a very quick example of the journey that one of those programs has been on. Hopefully that will be useful, and I'll use our soundcheck program as the project to do that with. Just very, very briefly, because this doesn't normally come through in the statistics, but we did a piece of evaluation recently, and this was one of the quotes that came back from a young person who'd done the program. This young person joined us from sheltered accommodation. So essentially this was a young person who was homeless and was referred to us by another agency with no experience within music, came and did our program, and then has found themselves in a situation where they've taken a career route into live music and now working on shows by artists like Take That, 50 Cent, Bring Me the Horizon, Taylor Swift, and it has provided them with a new lease of life and a new outlet into a sector that they just didn't know existed. So this program, as I mentioned before, around 100 young people annually are accessing it. As well as their core sessions, they'll also be working across around 464 to 500 live shows a year. That's 1,728 hours of practical experience. And there's some statistics in there around the increase in their confidence, their understanding of the opportunities within the sector, and then how many of them are going out into the sector and working. Now, interestingly, as I mentioned just before, that isn't funded as an art project. That's funded through our Liverpool City region education budget as a way of getting young people who aren't currently in paid employment into work. And when it was seed funded, when we tested and trialed the program and the ideas, again, it wasn't the Arts Council that provided that initial seed funding. It was a small UK music charity called Youth Music, and it was actually a local housing association. So a housing association in the UK will build affordable housing and provide that to tenants that need affordable housing. It was the housing association that gave us some seed funding in order to pilot the project. And when we've come out of the other side of this partnership now, but between that seed funding and us now running the programme funded through Liverpool City Region's education budget, we actually did a 3-year partnership with a local college that allowed us to transition from pilot through to full independent delivery. So the reason that I thought it was important to just paint that picture is that it's not as simple as one funder funding it, and then that is the case ongoing. We very much had a 3 to 5 year vision at the start of the programme, and I've been through a number of different funding and partnership relationships in order to come to the other end in the situation that we are now. So yeah, I just wanted to maybe finish before Mika opens the floor to any questions. Just by going back really to when we first got the building and COVID came, and the first thing that we did was painted the future is Birkenhead in hot pink on the front of our building. Our town isn't one that people spoke aspirationally about. People weren't saying, this is a place where exciting things happen. And we thought that it would be deliberately antagonistic, provocative, to ask that question and let that be the motif and the mantra that has come to shape what our organisation is up to this day. So yeah, thank you very much.